Very good. Good morning. Thank you, or good afternoon, actually, as we just ticked over to 12:01 p.m. Eastern time anyway, and I just hit the record button. So welcome to everyone. We're glad you're able to find the time to join us. For some, perhaps it's been a second or third or even fourth time that we've been together. But let me just go ahead and just jump right into where we're headed today. I'm going to start the slideshow, and I just want to briefly highlight here the two folks that are going to be talking to you. Obviously, it's my high school picture. And that's Brittany's current picture. So we'll be talking and really covering three key areas. So let me go ahead and get that out. And that has to do with this issue that I'm going to focus on briefly at the beginning. And you all perhaps have heard me say before in our focus on being donor driven. But how do you do a donor centric year end appeal? How do you write a letter from the donor's perspective? How do you stay donor centric in your year end campaigning is what I'm going to focus on. And then I'm going to pass it on to Brittany, who's got two main areas she'll cover. By the time we're finished today at 1 with some Q&A at the very end, we hope you'll feel confident and capable and have the tools you need to really, and you may be thinking, oh gosh, is it too late to start a year-end appeal? No, this is actually the perfect time right after Thanksgiving. First week of December is a great time to launch that marketing that you're going to do, those messages you're going to send out, and Brittany's going to talk about that. And then the last issue is this kind of buzz, how to be heard in the noise in the marketplace. And we think one key tactic that you definitely need to be doing, you and anyone else in your organization, is pay attention to those things that show up in your inbox from other year-end appeals. Steal shamelessly, look at what they're doing or what you don't want to do based on what we're going to talk about today. But that's sort of it in a nutshell. And then, of course, a little Q&A at the very end. You all know the drill when it comes to the sessions. You got a chat window on the right-hand side if there's a burning question you need to ask. Both women from the foundation are co-hosts, so they can pay attention to that. And hopefully you should have received the handouts for today, the PowerPoint 3-slide per page format notes. If you didn't get those, we'll get those to you, as well as this recording. Probably that link will be to you later today or tomorrow, certainly before Thanksgiving, Caitlin, we think, on your schedule. All right. So that's it. I want to talk a little bit about this whole issue of year end and donor centric. And so I'm going to focus on this first area that I mentioned. And I want to talk about two different approaches to fundraising, again, some of which we've covered before. And that's that whole idea of which approach do you use? Now, the understandable one here is being organization centric. And I was just saying to some of you who joined earlier, a new report that just came out today that said, while philanthropy surprisingly is holding up strong even during these troubled economic times of 2020, for major donors in particular, giving is up 7.8%. Can you believe that? So the middle donors, if you will, and the small donors, that's a different challenge. But what we're hearing from across the board, small, medium, and large donors, is this skepticism. And organization centric is really about who we are and what we've done and how wonderful we are and the difference that we made, and we're world class, and we take care of the needy and the homeless and the hurting. And well, of course you do. We expect that. It's like saying this jetliner is safe or our automobile is reliable. That's kind of the bottom line and to be expected in being organization centric. But it's all about you. And I'll just the famous line Bette Midler had in that movie about, and this is about narcissism, about, okay, that's enough me talking about me. What do you think about me? Kind of thing. Organization centric, you're kind of caught up in that mindset of just like meeting somebody for the first time who spends all the time telling you about themselves and how you feel about that relationship. So making light of it as I am, organization centric is kind of tone deaf out there. I got it. I understand it. I've heard from you before. What's new and different? So the second approach is donor centric. And of course, that's the model we want to build on today and what Brittany will pick up on, especially in your year-end giving. But keep in mind, it's about who are you? What do you want? What do you value? What are your family traditions? Part of that study I mentioned that just came out today indicated that those who have a faith that they report, some kind of belief system, religious belief system, are more likely to be donors. So it may be, if you're faith-based, if on this call, if you will, appealing to their belief system, their values, whichever they may be in your religious belief system. But what's your family tradition? What's important to you? Those kinds of things become really critical in fundraising in general. And today, in talking about year-end appeal, digital and snail mail that we will be discussing, it's certainly a key element that you can infuse into everything you do at the year end here. Family tradition, don't underestimate the importance of that. In our Q&A, maybe there'll be an opportunity, but each of you may want to reflect back and think about parents, grandparents, brothers, sisters, your circle of friends, and have you seen philanthropy being practiced in your family and how important that may be to other families. So donor-centric is about values and goals and family tradition. So, and it's really about building a case for them to become, and this is kind of that analogy again, back to Bette Midler, is getting them to fall in love with you, okay? And then you don't have to appeal to them in each different aspect of your fundraising campaign over the entire year, including your year-end appeal. It's earning the right, have them trust you to deal with the skepticism that's out there, and think about giving as an investment in your nonprofit. And there are individuals out there that are interested in that because, again, they don't trust, just like each of you that have, those particular sources that you go back to time and time again because you learn to trust them, a retailer in the neighborhood, an online site that you go to regularly, individuals who give are looking to, in fact, bond with, connect with, and build a relationship with your organization as well. So donor-centric means earning the right. All right. And it's really about this issue of, and think about transaction versus investment and how different that is. And we can talk more about that in the Q&A section, but kind of a working definition for being donor-centric is you're working to earn the right. You don't get it immediately. It's not granted to you. You're working to earn the right. So write all the copy from a you perspective. You can talk about that, and Brittany will give you some great examples of the impact that you're making, but it's not what we did, it's what you told us you want us to do. It's not the difference that we're making, it's what you told us you wanted us to focus on, and we're pleased to report those outcomes for you in our year-end appeal. All right, so keep that in mind. They want to know what it is that you've accomplished, and in particular, the difference that you make and the difference that the gift that you're requesting from them in your year-end appeal is going to make. So personalizing it, tying to a specific outcome, even a particular child, or you fill in the blank. And again, Brittany's going to focus on that in much greater detail here in just a moment. And then the last thing, personalize it. Think about it in writing that letter, one individual, that's all you're talking to. Just like now, I know there's many people on the call. It says 27 people are here, but I'm imagining just one of you listening and hopefully learning along the way. So it's just a mindset around your copy development and your writing that we like you to consider in your year-end appeal. So just briefly, just to get this, and the last key point here about coloring outside the lines, and we'll talk about this in greater detail, a couple of quick takeaways, and then Brittany's going to pick up and take it from here. Number one is don't worry about developing the perfect year-end appeal letter. All right, have 5 versions of the letter. Arbitrary, simplistic for the sake of discussion here. We have 100 people in our database. 20 of them get one letter, 20 of them get the next letter. Okay, don't worry about it being, if you will, so very polished. Get the board to sign off on it. Get Sharpie pens and mark something in the margin. Make it look like it's personalized. I'm sending this to you. And the other takeaway here, you may or may not have thought about, and this is, I can't reiterate enough, is ask your donors not to give you money necessarily. Yes, you want them in your year-end appeal, but more importantly, you want their advice. So if you don't already have 3 to 5 donors that might be on your year-end campaign cabinet or your advisory committee, see if you can reach out to a donor or 2 or 3, asking him or her for a few minutes to review copy that you're going to send them. Get them on a Zoom call, do a, if you will, a proverbial focus group, and test your messaging. And the donors will tell you that would be a turnoff. I don't like that. Oh, that's perfect. Say it this way. Hey, let me write it for you, or whatever. So staff and board and volunteers and patrons and clients, that's important. But the top takeaway here before I transition to Brittany is please include your donors, not just in your year-end appeal, but in all the messaging around all aspects of your fundraising campaign throughout the year. Keep in mind there are donors out there that just love the opportunity. Remember, if they are writing you a check, they've fallen in love with you. So they want to tell you how to get others to fall in love with you as well. So don't underestimate the importance of engaging donors in the year-end appeal process. So that's donor driven. We can come back to it in more detail, but I'm going to go ahead and transfer. I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to you, Brittany, if that's okay. Are you ready?
Yeah. Hello. Let me get my screen shared.
Sure.
Again. Oh, it says host disabled attendee screen share.
Okay. I'll be there with you in a minute more. Make co-host. You're now a co-host. All right.
Great. Let me share my screen. Okay.
Perfect. Take it away, Brittany.
Cool. So I'm Brittany Altman. I'm a digital strategist and I work a lot with John. I live in Colorado. So it's 10 a.m. here and I'm going to get started. Let me play my screen. Okay. You can see it?
Yep.
So we're going to be talking about leveraging multiple channels and multiple messages. So kind of tying into how can we work with a donor-centric campaign, and then what would it look like to build that year-end campaign. How can we also use various communication channels that's going to maximize our impact and result in new dollars from new donors. So to understand what this means, let's break it down in two sections. Understanding what leverage multiple channels means. Okay, there we go. Leveraging multiple channels. It refers to interacting with clients using a combination of indirect and direct communication channels and allowing our clients to take action using the channel of their choice. So allowing our donors to pick which channel they want to both interact with and donate with. So when you look at a multi-channel marketing strategy, you're using a bunch of different types of channels. Social media, you might have a physical location. You have a website, you might use paid search, you're probably using direct mail campaigns, but you're utilizing all of these channels across your marketing initiatives, and people are going to have the preference that they want to choose. And when I say leveraging multiple messages, I mean using a series of different messaging across those channels and allowing your messaging to resonate with those different types of audiences. So what that means, let's say that I have two audiences that I kind of break up my marketing by. I've got a potential donor and then I've got a current donor. And if I have a Facebook ad and a direct mail campaign and an email coming out, I might tailor that copy and that content and split it up between those two different groups. And the potential donors are going to see one piece and the current donors are going to see the other. But really, I'm utilizing this multiple messaging strategy to show and put in front of each different type of audience group messaging that's going to better resonate with them. So I know you're probably thinking, okay, wow, that sounds like a lot of work, like banging your head against your desk type thing. But I do want to tell you that there's strategies that we can use to build a multi-channel, multi-message year-end campaign that is easier to build and quicker to build and more efficient. So some of those strategies that we can use. First, determine the channels that you're going to use. And you're probably going to use channels that you've used in the past and that you're familiar with. Some channels that work really nicely with year-end campaigns is email, direct mail, social media, maybe free or paid, and then a landing page, or if you don't have landing page capabilities, a website. And I'll explain what a landing page is in a bit. But what's interesting about using these different channels is that different age groups have different preferences for what they want to use. So if you look at the study by Global Trends, when it comes to groups that are more inspired to give by, the millennials and the Gen X's were more inspired by social media posts, and the baby boomers were more inspired by email. And across the board, it changes it's the same when it comes to how they prefer to give. So online, but you can see that they change a bit across the different age groups. But either way, those 4 channels that I mentioned, email, direct mail, website, and social media, are within the top 4 ways that people prefer to give. So that's why it's important to have a multi-channel, multi-messaging strategy. Once you know what channels you're going to use, map out and understand how they're going to work together. So what I mean by that is if I'm using an email campaign, I'm probably sending people to my landing page so that they can pay online. And then somebody can make a donation from there. And if I'm using social media, I'm also using a landing page within this ecosystem of the social media strategy. And then I can make a donation. Or if you're using, say, Facebook's donation product, you can actually donate right on social media. And the same exact thing with direct mail. I can throw in a link to my landing page or my website. Again, if it's just your website's donation page, and then I can make a donation there. Or I can send in my check with the letter with your envelope. But either, when you look at the way that these 3 and 4 channels work together, they're still working together, especially with the landing page relationship. Once you have an understanding of channels, begin to define those audiences. So the audience that you saw, that I used as an example earlier, was current donor and potential donor. But I don't have to break it up by that. I could also break it up by interests. So let's say that I'm a nonprofit that caters to homeless. I could have a group that's more interested in helping out homeless youth. And then I also have a group that's interested in helping out homeless vets. Well, those are pretty different audiences that you're reaching out to, and you can split up that messaging that way. Another way you can do it is through monetary amounts. So you've got your general audience, maybe anybody catch-all who signs up for your newsletter, anybody who's ever interacted with you. But then you have people who have donated and they've crossed that line and have become a donor, but they've only donated less than X amount. So maybe you're your more average or your lower end donors. But then you've got donors who have donated more and that's much higher end donors. They should have different messaging. They should have more customized messaging, like John mentioned earlier. So you might want to break your campaign up that way. And once you have an understanding of what audiences that you want to dedicate to your campaign, begin to think about their characteristics. And this might be something that you guys have already done as an organization, but if you haven't, I highly suggest getting some stakeholders in the room and maybe even some of the actual donors or the people who fit into your audience groups and figure out some stuff like this, their demographics, their goals, behaviors, donation habits, the channels that they prefer and content that they like to see. Use some sort of 4x4 matrix grid and just ask them or talk to your organization about it and just have an understanding of who are these people, because you're going to be able to better write content for that. And once that's done, start to do the actual dirty work of building those lists for both email, direct mail, and social media. So what I mean by that is take the data from your own data. So your donor CRM, your email list, your website visitors. If you're using Google Analytics, you can actually pull information on, like, I want to target people who visit this page, or page followers on Facebook. You can also use Facebook's data. So especially if you're running some paid campaigns for your year-end giving, you can reach out to people who have specific demographics or like specific pages. So for example, I mean, you could actually target people who like a competitor, or people who like celebrities, or people who like, there's like a bunch of things that you can do, but you can actually target the people who like that page, which is really cool because it's people who have interest in your organization. And you can also use a third party or a purchase list. I know, John, what do you have to say about third party lists? You have explained that better than me.
There's other
I think you're muted.
sources that we've discussed in the past, but a simple one, and we like infousa.com. Everybody on this call is in it. It's in Iowa. There's about 210 million households in their database, and it's very inexpensive to go in and limit to the community that you're in, the zip code, the city, the county, net worth, home value, giving patterns, and buy a list very inexpensively. Minimum is $99, but the most expensive list we've ever bought was like 2,000 names, I think, and it was like $149. And they send you an Excel spreadsheet with lots of information. If you're saying we don't have many donor prospects in our database, or we have none, there's a variety of ways we can talk at the end about how to find them. But go consider infousa.com. Do a search. There's no cost to you to get that list identified and see about purchasing. You get it today with your credit card. They send you the Excel spreadsheet, and suddenly you've got potentially dozens, if not hundreds of new people that could be added to your database that you would mail your year-end appeal to.
Cool, thanks, John. And that's a really great way to make sure that if you are sending like a third party, you are tailoring that content, knowing that you're basically doing like a cold open to a contact that might not have heard from you before. So next, determine which channels, and this is a little tricky, will have unique messaging per audience and how many total pieces of content needs to be made for each audience. So that's like really confusing. Let's break that down. I have dedicated email, direct mail, social media, and landing page to my year-end campaign. Well, when you're doing these strategies, you're sending more than one email. You're going to send out maybe your email announcing the campaign, a check-in email, your last few emails as you get closer to the end of the year. You're probably going to send one mailer, maybe another postcard, social media posts all throughout the campaign, and then one landing page or one website page that's dedicated to the specific campaign if those capabilities allow. Well, if you're talking about having two different audience groups, so current donor, potential donor, you're looking at a total of 6 emails, 1 to 2 mailers, 6 posts, and 1 to 2 landing pages if you're using that amount here. So that sounds like a lot, especially when you're talking about multiple audiences. But if you templatize that content, it's actually going to be easier, and it's going to be like you're making 3 emails. So you've got 6 emails, but when you templatize it, you're really doing 3. So you're making one template that's going to suit for both audiences, except you're changing out the words and maybe the photos. So it's not as scary as it sounds. How can we templatize the content? Well, first you're going to start with a list of content ideas. I always recommend that you start with the landing page because it's going to be the biggest page of them all. And what a landing page is it's one page that you can build that's like dedicated to the campaign. And we want people to only focus on the one action that we've allowed on that page. So let's say that I go to your website and I see a menu of initiatives, about us, there is testimonials and stories, there's a blog, there's a donate button. There's so much stuff happening that I can get distracted so easily. But if you build a landing page, which is just one page on your website dedicated to the specific campaign, and this could be for anything, not just year end, I've now funneled them into the one specific goal that I want them to do is to donate to my year end campaign. And I can add things like a top header that has an opening sentence and an opening powerful image. I can add some powerful testimonials, a story. I can sprinkle my donation button across the page. But it's allowing them to be trapped in this kind of funnel without getting distracted. And if you draw it out with pencil and paper and first begin there and start to understand what sections are going to make out my template, then it becomes easier. And it can be the same thing where you draw out the template for the email too. And if you think about it, your landing page should have more content, and then your email is going to have a smaller amount of content, and then your social media post is going to be a much smaller amount of content. So you're kind of just understanding how all of this works together. As I just mentioned, display that action throughout the template. So if you're doing a landing page, make sure that the button is throughout the website. If you're doing an email, make sure you have a button in the beginning and then a button at the end to take them to make the donation. So this example here is an example of me tailoring my content to different audiences and using the same type of template. So will you consider continuing your support? That's going out to a current donor. Your corporation or your business can make an impact. That's going out to maybe some sort of business or corporate sponsor. And then make an impact, become a donor by giving today. That's a sentence to somebody who has not donated in the past. And you know, because you have that data and it's inspiring them to donate. So once you have an understanding of what specific content you want to build based off of your landing page, I know that I have room for 3 stories or 3 testimonials. I know that I'm going to have this amount of demographics or impact points of our organization. You can begin to think about which story is important to current donors, which story is important to potential donors. And remember, the content and the template should be the same, the type of content across each audience. So you should be able to use the same structure for a landing page or email for all audiences. You're just going to swap out that copy in the visuals. And finally, use drag and drop programs to knock out quick builds. So what I mean by that is you can use a software like Unbounce for landing pages. If you don't have an in-organization web person or a trusted freelancer, you might be able to build this yourself. I've heard a lot of good feedback on this where you're just dragging and dropping sections and there's like pre-starter things. If you're not already using MailChimp or Constant Contact or some other sort of email program, you can use that. You can use Canva for social media graphics. And that's canva.com, I believe. And they also have a lot of really good starter templates. And you can also use something like graphicriver.net or creativemarket.com for starter postcard templates. Creating print materials is more tricky if you have in-house capabilities and you want to get something done quicker. They can use starter postcard templates, but of course you can give your strategy. So you can give the templates you've built or the strategy that you want to go for to a freelancer or company and hire him or her to build the assets out. So that's the actual tools you can use to build a year-end campaign. Since we have time, I'm going to break it up. Do we have any questions on this for now?
Caitlin, Kara, anything you all want to add or reinforce?
I would say that I work on most of the social media for the foundation, and I use Canva on a daily basis. And Canva Pro is for nonprofit organizations. So I would suggest if you don't already use that, it is a great resource and it kind of does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. It has a lot of great templates in there that you can, change and use to fit your image, but it kind of takes the creative part out of it for you. So it saves a lot of time.
Great. And Karen had asked a question, do you promote the idea of asking donors for referrals and then using the so-and-so suggested that I talk with you about our year-end campaign in a special letter? And my response back is what I said earlier about engaging donors wherever possible to help shape and mold the message, to at least critique what you're going to send out. And then at some point in time, depending on the relationship with that donor, to get them involved specifically where they may work with you to actually send a letter themselves to contacts and to friends. There's nothing more powerful than an existing donor asking a donor prospect. So, and it can be very complimentary to a donor when you go to them and you're not asking them for money every time, you're asking them for their advice, their help, their recommendations. Some of you are thinking, nah, I don't have a single donor I could do that with. And then others right now may be thinking, oh gosh, I know several people that even said, how can I help you out? So those are the donors you want to engage with shaping and molding your message, as I said earlier, but also doing the direct appeal. So that one letter coming from, and even striking out at the bottom, the name that's been typed in and say, you know, I'm an existing donor, love to talk to you about why, please read the following. That's all that stuff that can be written in the margins. So it looks very personal, but engaging your donors and making referrals. And even one group we've had have started a friend-raising advisory committee. Not a fundraising advisory committee, but a friend-raising advisory committee. And the sole purpose of that committee is to grow the database of potential donors. A friend raiser versus a fundraiser, again, appeals to a donor, and you're not asking them for money, you're asking them for advice.
Great point.
Yes, excuse me, Caitlin, somebody else is saying that they use Canva for designing postcards. So Brittany, I think your point here is offering resources to folks. It sounds like we've got several folks, Carol, Jill, and May, all of who, besides Caitlin, that have used Canva. So that sounds like a real crowd pleaser for you all to think about at canva.com.
Cool. Yeah, it's really great. And especially a lot of the assets that they provide for you. Cool. So I'm going to move into section 3. Excuse me, my allergies have been bothering me, so if I keep coughing. Building buzz to create a strong year-end push. So we talked about how we can build a campaign and how we can start with a template, the types of different sections we can create. So what kind of content can we use inside of the strategy during the holiday season, especially to bring in more money than any other time of year? So it's important to look at the 4 reasons why donors get involved with nonprofits during the holidays. To be happier by helping others, it's the holidays, it's at the time of giving. To feel good about themselves by making a difference. To be connected to something positive. And there are a small amount of people who also take advantage of tax deductions for the end of the year. So knowing that, how can you cut through all that holiday noise? All the other campaigns happening by nonprofits, all the other e-commerce type stuff happening that's coming to their mailbox, and inspire donors to donate to your year-end giving campaign? Well, the first and the easiest, and have inspiring content. Inspiring content is donor-centric, like John mentioned earlier, content that is impactful, meaningful, heart-bending, urgent, personal. I want to share it. I want to make an action based off of what I've seen. It's inspiring me to donate. Some inspiring content is stories and testimonials. These are the most effective way to have donors understand the true impact of their gift, especially if the story is coming from those directly who you have impacted. So the people who your organization is helping. And showcase these stories through text and video format. And choose stories or testimonials based on the audience they will be serving. So my example earlier where I said homeless youth and homeless vets, if I'm gonna have an email campaign sent out to those people that I've broken up as homeless vet interest, I'm gonna wanna use a story about how I've helped out a homeless vet. And have the ask come directly from those who you have impacted. So having it come from that real person who you have helped and who will be receiving your assistance. One example of that would be new shoes will allow me to walk to school safely. Will you consider donating to my campaign? So it's just tweaking the copy a bit and including a photo of somebody to make your ask seem real. Use graphs that prove your impact. So your organization has spent so much time and resources and done so much good to make a difference in the community. We'll showcase that. Show the money that you have put towards this and how it's helped that. And especially connect the dots between the current need statistics in your area, especially if you're a local nonprofit, and how a donor's gift can impact those numbers. And this is really good to use if you're using like a third-party list like we talked about earlier, where you've got that cold touch. If you can show how, hey, this nonprofit exists in your area and we have improved things by this amount, and you can be a part of that. It's a really powerful way to warm up that introduction. Video is the most effective form of media when it comes to having content. So some ways that you can use video in your campaign is to include a kickoff video on your landing page and possibly in the first email announcing the campaign. And use videos to showcase testimonials and stories on your landing page and then your social media posts. And you can also email or post campaign update videos. So what's cool about this is these don't have to be crazy production professional stuff. You can post more like guerrilla style campaign videos and just have a talking head of somebody, hey, we've launched this campaign, we've already raised X amount of dollars, we're 85% to our goal, you can help us out. These don't have to be crazy productions. Make it easy for people to donate. So you've caught them in and you've brought them in with your inspiring content. So now make it easy for them to give you money and offer multiple ways for those donors to give so that they can choose their preference. Just like that study that I showed you before, where people have different ways, different preferences of giving, do the same thing. So offer it online on your landing page, or if you're not using a landing page for your campaign and you're just sending people to your donate page, do that. But I'll just, in general, have a way for them to donate online. Use Facebook fundraising feature, especially if you're using social media posts or paid advertising posts. And if you're not signed up, you can register at socialimpact.facebook.com. Offer text to donate. A lot of donor products have text to donate features available. Some of them are included, some of them you have to pay extra, but text to donate is a great way to allow people to extend and give donations. And finally, if you're using mailing contributions, make sure you include that envelope in the direct mail campaign, because these do still work. Especially you'll find with like the baby boomers, they're more likely to donate through mail-in campaigns. Use predetermined donation tiers. So a study once found that using predetermined donation tiers led to a 12% increase. And especially if you place the amounts highest to lowest. And John, you have a good point, a word that you use for that as well.
Thank you, Brittany. I appreciate you indulging me on this. It is a bit of a pet peeve that I have. It's called acquiescence, in that an opportunity, for example, to complete a survey where you have a Likert scale, strongly disagree, disagree, agree, strongly agree. If the first option you give me is strongly disagree, research shows that unknown bias is built in, and I'm more likely to go with a disagree format than an agree format. It impacts validity and reliability of surveys. Same is true when it comes to giving. And that one of the things, and if you don't believe me, this is a great chance for some A/B, for that matter, A, B, C, D, E, F testing. As I said earlier, don't worry about the perfect letter that has the perfect appeal. Try multiple ways in which you format the letter, and try the stair-step fashion when it comes to options as far as dollar amounts in reverse. So many, and look at them as they, and I wanted to reference this earlier, not only your inbox, but your mailbox. When you get appeals from other nonprofits at home, open them up, immediately look at their pledge card. You'll see 25, 50, 100, 250, 500 maybe, and then other. Stop that. You're thinking too little of yourself as a nonprofit. Keep in mind that there are individuals out there giving away money for nonprofits they believe in. Give them a chance to be generous. So have your appeal, in one case, one sample letter that starts with 1,000, and then 300, and then 50 and 25, like you're seeing on the screen. Be bold and have another variation on that same letter that starts at 10,000, goes to 5, 2,500, and let people, that doesn't mean that automatically by reversing the order and putting in larger gifts, you'll get larger gifts, but implication is research shows it will increase the likelihood that people will stop and think, Oh, and there's a certain, if you will, built-in perception as you step down in that. And again, it's based on financial availability as far as resources I have to give to you, but give it a try. And then the last piece that's relevant to this and what Brittany is talking about is how many of you have got this fabulous website. I was just on one the other day that was an animal welfare organization. Really well done, videos, testimonials, cute pictures of animals. And then you hit the donate now button and you go to PayPal and it's got zero. And you're expecting the donor to type in the dollar amount. Stop that. As is shown here, gives predetermined amounts. Let them pick their own dollar amount if they want, but have that as one of several options. So I can go to your donate now button and click immediately on 1,000 or 500 or 50 versus right in the middle of this particular website. When you hit donate now, there was nothing but a place I had to type in the number or the amount that I wanted to donate. Unsophisticated, and you're missing all these opportunities based on this study that Brittany has cited here in this very slide about giving people a number that you're looking for. I was at an event not too long ago in Columbia, South Carolina, where there was a philanthropist, excuse me, Brittany, for indulging me a little bit further. And she was pointing to different nonprofits represented in the room about how much her family foundation had given. We've given you 100,000. We've given you 50,000. We've given you 45,000. And this woman in the back, who was a recipient, said, "How come you only gave us 1,000?" Well, she said, "Marjorie, that's all you asked for." So again, keep in mind, don't look for the perfect final letter and have to have everybody agree to it. Have multiple versions of letters. Test out the messaging, and in particular, give dollar amounts for people to pick from in your email and snail mail. Brittany, was that enough on acquiescence?
Yeah, that was great. You always describe it way more eloquently than I can.
Well, thank you.
And and you
Go
can
right ahead.
also A/B test with like your landing pages as well. Especially so I've had clients in the past who use some sort of embedded form on their donation page. And you can actually use some sort of landing page software. And I think Google Analytics can handle it as well. But you can have, 50-50 traffic and also test out those different highest to lowest or lowest to highest on your website as well. So there's a lot of good times for A/B testing. And if you want to know more about it, just look into A/B testing. It's really a powerful tool. And finally, the last piece when it comes to the donation tiers is provide a description of what each amount will accomplish. This is really cool because this example here where it says $50, it says $50 teaches a child to read and write for an entire year. So for me, I'm like, we could easily spend $50 on an Uber Eats order for one meal with my husband and I, or we can donate $50 and give it to a child to read for a whole year. That $50 is really more impactful than I thought it was. So it's really cool just to put the description there and let people know what the money's actually doing. And offer one-time or monthly donation options for donating. I know even PayPal has a little button where you can click and make it a recurring donation. And if you put that within the form, it's just an easy way to get people to sign up and think about that. And reinforce your messaging. So have your largest campaign push and largest campaign frequency of messaging be towards the last few days of the campaign. So what that might look like is send out the initial campaign announcement and then send an update or reminder email, say every 5 to 7 days until the last few days of the year. And then during those last few days, an email should be sent every 1 to 2 days. And the reason why is because 33% of all gifts online are given in December. And 10% of all donations came in the last 3 days of the year. So it might sound scary to send so many different campaign announcements through email. And these don't have to be crazy production emails either. It could just be 1 to 2 sentences with a donate button, but you're just sending those reminders because you have to remember that people are getting messaging all the time throughout these holiday seasons. So you're not the only one bugging them, if you want to say it that way. Macy's is sending people announcements every 4 hours or so. So just don't be afraid to make that push, knowing the data about year-end giving in December, especially during the last few days. If you're doing social media, run your social media ads throughout the entire duration of the campaign. So if you're using paid advertising, but increase that budget and the reach for the last few days of the year. So set your budget to be lower in the beginning and then really ramp up and use the more of the money that you've dedicated for this campaign toward the last week or so. If you're doing direct mail, send a direct mail letter in the beginning to the donors to announce your campaign. And then you might think about sending a follow-up postcards to those who have not yet donated, especially if you have good data on, like, you've got your regular donors and you know you haven't heard from this person, send them a follow-up postcard. And use urgency and reinforce your messaging in the actual messaging that you're using. So maybe you might want to use a countdown approach to build the anticipation and create a sense of urgencies. So 3 days until the end of the year, 3 days to get your last donations in for 2020. And post updates of your fundraising progress to inspire people to contribute towards finishing your goals. That's where it's really good to have some sort of like thermometer style approach to having a goal for your year-end campaign. And post it on Facebook, send it out on your emails, incorporate it on the landing page if you want to update the graphic that shows how much you've made toward the campaign. But this will really help people understand, wow, they're only 15% more towards reaching their goal. Let's give. And give donors an easy way to share some sort of I donated this campaign update on their social media. I'm sure a lot of you are using like a WordPress website. There's some really easy share plugins that you can use and you can install on your landing page or on your website and have people post and share if they'd like, saying, I donated to this children's hospital. Why don't you? Whatever you want, and you can customize that messaging. And finally, with permission for reinforcing your messaging, tag and thank donors on social media to create more buzz. Again, you really want to make sure you have their permission to do that, but it's a really great way to tag somebody to reach into their market and their connections and just publicly thank them. They're going to feel special if you can do that. And put a pop-up or a slide on your website. So if you're using like a slider on your website, or you want to use some sort of pop-up just announcing your year-end campaign to anybody who happens to come to your website, not through one of those other channels, it's a great way to just let people know what's happening. And personalize your campaign. So especially with a direct mail campaign or the email, if you're using those custom tags, personalize how that appeal is going to emphasize how highly you value your donors. So direct mail is the most effective way to provide that personal touch with your ask. And address users by their first name or their preferred salutation. Hopefully you are collecting this in your donors CRM. And recognize a donor's past involvement with your previous campaigns. So this is where it's really important to do for the higher end donors, is to just mention, and as John said earlier, you could even just handwrite this note on a printed piece and have like your organization or your board's help. Hey, we really appreciated your gift of X last year. Would you, donate to us again? I don't know what kind of sentencing you would use, but really just use their what happened last year could be really helpful for them. And then speak to them about how they can directly help make your mission possible. So make sure that you're saying inside that letter where the money's going to go to, how it's impacted others, because it's going to help with that donor-centric approach like John has mentioned. And then once you've sent everything and the campaign's over with, send handwritten thank you notes. And this is also another good thing to have your boards help with this one. And make sure you're especially doing this to the higher end donors, but just send them the thank you note and say something personal about it. It was good to see you at blank. I hope your grandchild is doing good if you have personal information about them. But this just helps make them feel extra special. And that is it.